More and more schools and school boards are banning cell phones during classroom times. Good idea? Or too little, too late? I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life. On each episode of my weekly podcast, a different topic, discussion, or story from our lives.
Season 13, Chapter 7.
Banning cell phones
in the classroom.
Banning cell phones in classrooms. Various individual schools and school boards across Canada have experimented with banning student use of cell phones and social media during the school day. Recently, the Ministry of Education in Ontario announced a full ban in all provincial schools starting in the fall of 2024. So you got the summer to get into cell phone detox. Only weeks ago, America's second largest school board, the Los Angeles United School Board, voted 5-2 in favor of a ban. The first question they get asked is, how will you enforce the ban? Most are not sure, and they say, we're working on it. We're discussing it. I don't know, why don't you just open up your cell phone and ask ChatGPT how they would do it? Also, 4 of Ontario's school boards, among the largest in Canada, are suing the parent companies of Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok, alleging that the social media platforms are disrupting student learning. It seems that it took about a quarter of a century for it to dawn on some people that cell phones and social platforms have a negative consequence, one that may outweigh any of the benefits. However, is a ban on these ubiquitous devices aimed at youth anywhere near a solution? What would be a good solution? Before that even, what's the problem? Are we correctly identifying what's broken before we try to fix it? You know me, I always like to look at how we got here. At the very least, an overview. In the late 80s and into the 90s, we began to see the home computer, biding our time to the sounds of the screeching dial-up modem until suddenly an iffy connection. It was the time of fax machines and clunky cell phones. As bad as it was still pretty good. It all seemed kind of miraculous. We embraced it and its potential. We plugged along. In 2000, the first cell phone with a camera. 2001, cell phones got access to the internet, which itself had been growing exponentially. 2004, Facebook. 2006, Twitter. 2007, the Apple iPhone. By the way, that was the same year that Netflix began streaming content to your screens. 2010, Instagram. 2010, a child born that year is now in high school. All of this tech and accessibility has always been there for them. And entering high school, they've probably already had their own smartphone for the last 3 or 4 years. Go back to 2001, the cell phone with the camera and then access to the internet. Theoretically, that person is now pushing 40, has been in the workforce for the last couple of decades. For them, too, it's just always been this way. My point is, as new as this might feel to many of us, it's not. Not even close. So it's not that we suddenly have a problem. It's that we ignored it. We ignored the virus until it became a pandemic. And now we're panicking and trying to lock it down. Interesting to me also that the home television flat screen debuted around 1997 when all this was happening. And where did we go from there? Bigger flat screen. And then even bigger. Home theater, 5.1 surround sound. Gather round, kids. Our Netflix DVD just arrived in the mail. That was great, but that was mom and dad. By the 2000s, the kids were pretty content with their own content on a tiny screen. The phone. Beginning in 2000, the phone had a camera, so you could create content. Then access to the internet to find more content, then social sites to share the content. And a lot of it seemed way more interesting than whatever was going on in our day-to-day lives. In a relative flash of time, this series of technical events, the perfect storm. It was in those 80s and 90s that Mom and Dad embraced the new connectivity, clunky as it was, and the good parents shared their joy with their children. They taught them how to connect. It's a wonderful world. We live in the future. You better learn this, kids, because you're going to need it. I don't want to say that no one saw maybe there was a problem. I'm sure someone was trying to warn us. But who listens to those killjoys? Shut up, we're all having fun as a family on the computer. The adults, to whom a lot of this internet connectivity and smartphones were first introduced, passed on the legacy. It was the generation after that again passed along this excitement. And now they're being told, hey, your kids have a problem. I'm a couple of demographic categories removed from these issues, but I can compare it to parents of days gone by. Parents who let their kids ride bikes without helmets, who fed us sugar-laced Kool-Aid and Frosted Flakes, took us out on the highway riding in the cargo space of the station wagon. You always see those posts on social, don't you? Hey, somehow as kids we survived. Well, yeah, we did, but many did not. We had to introduce safety measures. Some took it too far. They became helicopter parents and bubble-wrapped their kids. And here we are looking at these new issues, a new set of problems with the smartphones. Well, who first introduced them and told them it's great? We did. And now that there is an issue, the best answer so far is the typical parental response. No. Because I said so. The problems inherent in youth and smartphones are layered. Much of it centers around the amount of time they spend on the device. There's a myriad of studies. All reach similar conclusions. One recent study took a look at a diverse group of youth aged 10 to 17 and found an average of almost 5 hours a day was spent on the phone. And obviously, that's not talking on the phone to another human being live. That is not what's happening with the phone. It's a smartphone, as comedian Gary Gulman has said.
To me, the phone is this seldom used app on my phone. And if you use it on me, oh God help you. How dare you? I am furious when I get a phone call. You text me first to see if I'm even taking phone calls today. And I'll text you back with a window.
Some kids in this particular study check their smartphones hundreds of times per day. Results? Smartphones and social media are heavily implicated in an increase in mental distress among youth, self-injurious behavior, including suicide, negative effects on self-worth and self-image, and personal relationships. Due to non-moralization of much of social media content, cyberbullying, and unrealistic comparisons and expectations promoted by these sites. And they're not learning in school, at least not the curriculum, because they are buried in their smartphones. The Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Vivek Murthy, issued a recent warning about the epidemic of loneliness and isolation, exacerbated by COVID-19, but rooted in the increasing reliance on smartphones. Wow, I thought all of this was supposed to be fun. The allegation is, many social platforms are designed to be addictive. And that's denied by these media executives, even when they are in front of committees of Congress and Parliament. Are they designed to be addictive? In my opinion, of course they are. And they are targeted at youth. Youth are more vulnerable to addiction than adults. Get them while they're young. Tobacco and beer companies have known this. They did this for years. They still do. I once had a brewery executive tell me, if a customer is not brand loyal before they turn legal drinking age, we'll never get them. Beer ads targeted at teens. Look closely at any video ads for beer and spirits. Lots of good-looking people enjoying alcohol. We assume they are of legal age, and for the TV commercial they probably have to be. But look at them closely. Any one of them would have to be ID'd at a bar or liquor store.
Okay, you got an ID for the liquor?
Yeah. Oh, no, I left it in the car.
Sorry. You'll have to get it before.
Oh, well, I forgot the car.
We've clamped down on cigarettes, but there's still lots of candy-flavored vaping products out there. Social platforms and big tobacco are the best parallel. Because it's one thing to discover that your product has addictive and or harmful qualities, but it's quite another thing to know that all along, even design it that way, and then promote the heck out of it anyway. Tobacco was huge, so it took us years to take them down a few pegs. Social platforms are even bigger, and they were allowed to roll out completely unregulated and unfettered. And now we're trying desperately to reel them back in? As people are fond of saying, it's like closing the barn door after the horse has bolted. Yeah, thanks for that analogy. That's relatable to a lot of us. Yeah, now I know what you mean. But yeah, you know what I mean? Big tobacco made addictive, deathly products. Big Auto made polluting, exploding, deathly vehicles. Big Pharma promoted addictive, deathly opioids. Big banks control wealth and deathly poverty. Big Oil. Well, hold on a second. Speaking of Big Oil, Saudi Aramco is the 6th most valuable company in the world according to market cap. And it's only slightly ahead of Meta Facebook. The top 5 are all tech companies involved in hardware, software, and apps. The market value of those top 5 is about $15 trillion. Only the United States and China have economies bigger than 15 trillion. Nvidia, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, and Alphabet Google are the new nations of the world, and nobody votes them into power. In other words, there's a lot of money in keeping us on our smartphones, and especially kids. Get them young and get them for life. The same U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, has called on U.S. Congress to legislate warning labels on social media platforms. Warning labels like on cigarettes, to alert the users, young and old, about the addictive nature of the product. I don't know that that's going to happen, but at least it's keeping this discussion going. Brings me back to the question. Banning cell phones in the school classrooms. Too little too late? I don't know, maybe. Perhaps a ban is only going to do that one thing, keep the discussion going, while we search for real answers to the problem. Maybe, if nothing else, this helps raise awareness that youth are spending too much time on their devices, and it's harming their health, which harms our future. I mean, I'd hate to have history look back on us and say, they had a problem back then. How come nobody said anything? Well, at least people are saying something. There's another school of thought out there that contends it's just kids being kids and grown-ups being grown-ups. Grown-ups convinced that these kids today are just on the wrong path, not like when we were kids. It's possible. Science might argue otherwise. As much as each new generation has its challenges, and we can always see the similarities, all of this connectivity is something that we've never really had to deal with before. Never in our history. This industrial revolution is like no other revolution of the past. I think we can agree that these devices are disruptive to the learning climate of a classroom. A ban? No, because I said so, seems like the easy and quick answer. I don't know that ultimately it's going to be a solution. If the device disrupts the classroom, do we ban the device or restructure the classroom? For decades, teachers confiscated toys and other distractions from the non-attention paying students. Remember, they sat in a drawer, and they were handed back to the offenders at year's end. Those were the days, and these aren't them. Smartphones aren't rubber balls and yo-yos. They're handy in case of an emergency. It can be worth $1,000. You can't just take that away. So banning them may sound like a good rule, but enforcement is the bigger challenge. Here's what I would do. Use of a smartphone during classroom time is prohibited. During breaks, recess, lunch, etc., feel free. I would start each class by asking if anyone needs an extra 2 to 3 minutes to wrap up their business on their smartphone. Anyone caught on their phone instead of paying attention to the lesson will be allowed to keep their cell phone, but asked to leave the class. After multiple infractions, a parent or guardian would be contacted. I would also have at least 1 day a week in each class where we specifically use our smartphones to complement the day's lesson. All right, class, if this social platform has 1 bully for every 100 users, and they have a total of 5 million users, how many bullies are on the platform?
Bueller.
All right, class, Google Napoleon, and then each of you give me a quick 2-minute impromptu talk on the 2 top search results.
Bueller.
Napoleon Bonaparte was a general. Napoleon Dynamite was a good dancer. Correct. I would also offer a credit course called Cellphone or Smartphone. Doesn't that make more sense? Teach smartphone. Welcome to Smartphone class, students. Over the next semester, we're going to learn how smartphones work, how social media targets youth, including its addictive qualities. We're going to look at medical studies that have identified health risks involved with overuse. We're going to learn the benefits of actual human-to-human contact. Please open your cell phones to Instagram and let's get started. Whatever happened to knowledge is power? Knowledge is freedom. Rather than ban it, teach them about it. That, of course, would require some new training for many teachers, some forward thinking, some future planning. Isn't it easier for parents and school boards to just say no? Remember that? Just say no? Nancy Reagan's solution to America's drug problem? What's your deal? Just say no. Yeah, well, I did say no. But I'm an addict now, and though my outside says no, my inside says more drugs, please. These issues are much more complicated than just say no. Did we learn nothing from that? Cell phones in class, just say no? Because that's what a ban is, just saying no. I'm not saying a ban is nothing, but it's nothing much. It does not address the bigger picture. There are reports from certain individual schools that some students are responding well to a ban at their particular institution. Maybe it's like an addict who's wanted to quit for a long time but can't, keeps failing. Some students are saying, "Thanks, I was waiting for someone to come along and help me get off this thing." I assume that as the new bans take hold, we'll get some of that kind of student reaction, but generally I think most students will be opposed. A lot of the current high school seniors started high school during COVID lockdown. Thank goodness for smartphones and iPads and laptops and Zoom and computers. Otherwise, they might have learned nothing. Listen, I believe everything in moderation, including moderation. Whether a thing is good for you or bad for you, there is such a thing as too much of it. Stop telling me how beneficial connectivity is. Of course it is. And stop whining about how harmful it is. Of course it is. Why aren't you telling me about how you plan to strike a balance between the two? A ban is not balance. Here's the truth. School funding is based on good grade scores. Good grade scores are based on kids being able to regurgitate the curriculum in a test. So anything that interrupts the curriculum, well, let's ban it. It's going to hurt our bottom line. Maybe we should return to actual education, the sharing of knowledge, defining the real problems and facing them head on, at school and at home. No, because I said so? I say no to that. And because I said so. There was a story recently about those older model brick phones and the flip-ups, still popular among seniors. We're seeing a resurgence among younger people. They're tired of always being connected. These phones are a phone with limited text and no internet. It's called the dumb phone. It's a trend. I don't know that it's a paradigm shift. It's just if smartphones have led us to a generation of dumb kids, maybe dumb phones will lead to smarter people.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.
Shut